The truth nobody likes to say out loud is the middle class fails to get rich because it's lazy, cursed, or missing a top-secret trick. It fails because it runs a plan designed for comfort in perfect months, instead of compounding through real months. It improvises where the rich run choreography. It buys identity when the rich buy cash flow. It waits for permission while the rich write policies for themselves and obey them. This is not a takedown of hardworking people. It's a field guide to the brutal patterns that keep ordinary earners stuck and the equally ordinary systems that break those patterns. If you can handle candor, you can change your slope. Let's start with a hook you can feel in your kitchen. Imagine waking up on the 1st of the month. Your paycheck hit yesterday. The number looks decent, but that number secretly belongs to rent, insurance, subscriptions you forgot, annual renewals, school fees, the tires you should have replaced, and the card you swore you'd pay off. Your brain calls it available. You try to be careful. By the 15th, careful lost. Not because you're weak, but because you're running money through moods instead of rails. The brutal reason number one the middle class stays stuck, it uses one big bucket and hope. Rich households use lanes and calendars. Their income lands in a staging account and then auto-flows to 4 jobs. A bills lane that pays fixed costs and predictable irregulars you can put on a calendar. Property taxes, car maintenance, holidays. A sleep fund that turns emergencies into errands paid once. An investing lane that buys broad, low-cost ownership on payday before lifestyle even knows the cash existed, and a weekly spending card that resets every Friday so drift lasts no more than 6 days. No heroics, just choreography. If you build rails, your month behaves even when you're tired. If you don't, you pay friction fees forever, and friction beats compounding. The second reason is the financed identity trap. The middle class gets offered long terms and low monthly payments on everything that signals, "I made it." Cars that stretch to 84 months, kitchen upgrades that extend beyond the appliances' lives, phones on 24-month plans stacked on top of cable bundles, stacked on top of streaming bundles. The payment feels small, the math is not. When you finance depreciating proof of status on terms longer than the thing's useful life, you rent yesterday while trying to fund tomorrow. The wealthy buy assets that earn or endure on terms shorter than their useful life. They don't worship austerity, they worship margin. They drive reliable, not remarkable, until assets, not ours, can pay for remarkable without touching compounding. Third, the house becomes a museum. The middle class anchors wealth expectations to home equity, then buys too much house because the bank said approved. The mortgage payment swallows oxygen, repairs arrive on a credit card because there's no reserve, and investing later never arrives. The brutal truth: a home can be a partner in wealth or a set piece that steals your future. The test isn't moral, it's mechanical. After the roof is paid, can you still invest on schedule, feed a sleep fund, and survive a fridge failure? If not, the house is too loud. Rich households choose a payment so boring it disappears into autopay, while assets grow in the background. They let the kitchen be a kitchen and the brokerage do the flexing. Fourth, the career autopilot. Middle-class professionals often spend a decade waiting for someone else to price them. They work hard and hope someone notices. They switch companies only under duress. They believe pay equals years served. It doesn't. The people who pull away behave like friendly prosecutors of their own value. They keep a receipts file of outcomes: dollars saved, errors prevented, revenue created, days shaved, clients retained, and every 9 to 12 months they ask for the rate, title, or flexibility that matches those receipts. If the room says no without logic, they take the receipts to a room that can do math. They protect 2 deep work blocks a week and use them to produce artifacts other adults can use. A process that removes rework, a memo that clarifies a decision, a dashboard that ends an argument. Promotions follow the person who makes other people's weeks easier. The middle class confuses loyalty with leverage. The rich practice leverage with evidence. Fifth, no ownership, only wages. Wages are honorable and necessary. They are also capped by hours and bosses. Rich households buy ownership with surplus, broad equity funds that own thousands of businesses, boring rental properties run on checklists, royalties on media or software, minority stakes in small companies. They do not try to become stock pickers, they buy the parade. They contribute on payday, reinvest distributions, rebalance on 2 dates a year, and keep a ballast sleeve of safe assets sized to their feelings so they don't smash the sell button when headlines scream. The middle class says, "I'll invest when there's extra." There's never extra. Capture on arrival is the only way wages become assets. Sixth, distribution blindness. You can be excellent and poor if nobody can find you. You can be average and wealthy if you're easy to find, easy to book, and hard to regret. Many middle-class businesses and freelancers rely on word of mouth that never gets engineered. Rich owners treat distribution as a system, a Google business profile with current photos and reviews, simple landing pages that answer the questions humans actually ask, an info number answered by a human who schedules, an email list they feed weekly with something useful so people buy when asked. Inside companies, they publish useful memos, send post-meeting summaries, and make their work portable so it travels beyond their body. Distribution is leverage you don't have to be famous to own. Seventh, tax design ignored. The middle class treats taxes as an April event and tips the government with disorganization. The rich treat taxes as year-round design. They collect the match because it's salary by another name. They wire contributions to tax-advantaged accounts into the same rails that move rent and groceries. They place tax-inefficient assets in sheltered accounts and tax-efficient assets in taxable. They skim a fixed percentage of side income into quarterlies the day cash arrives. They keep receipts so audits are clerical, not catastrophic. They don't cheat, they just don't forget. After-tax return is the only return you can eat, and organization is a yield. Eighth, attention leaks. A tired brain buys convenience at surge pricing. The middle class thinks money decisions happen on spreadsheets. They happen on couches at 10:27 p.m. Red badges sell your focus. Doom scrolling sells your sleep. Sleep loss sells you delivery and impulse buys tomorrow. Rich households design environments that protect attention. Shopping apps 2 screens deep, phones charging outside the bedroom, 2 10-minute dinners stocked so "I'm cooked" doesn't become "I paid $30 for cold fries." A small friction kit, water, snack, charger, so convenience stores stop renting your wallet, and protected deep work blocks because attention is the only currency that reliably raises your price. Ninth, panic investing. The middle class treats markets like a casino and their emotions like policy. They buy when headlines feel safe and sell when screens turn red, locking in losses and missing recoveries. The rich write a 1-page investing policy in plain language: what they own, why, how much they add on payday, when they rebalance, birthday and half birthday, how dividends are handled, what they'll do if prices fall 30%, and what they'll do with windfalls and company stock. They tape it where panic can find it. They keep a small ballast sleeve so their nervous system can carry their equities. They obey a calendar, not a headline. They look boring. Boring survives. 10th, no survivability. The middle class runs without a buffer and calls it optimism. Optimism without reserves is denial. Emergencies show up like clockwork. Without cash, they become loans at 19% APR. Without insurance sized to reality, they become decades of legal and medical bills. Rich households buy margin first. 2 months of essentials can be enough for stable dual incomes, 4 to 6 months for single income homes or variable earners. Health coverage that matches usage, term life if someone depends on you, disability insurance because your income is your largest asset, and an umbrella policy that sits over home and auto. Survivability keeps compounding alive long enough to matter. 11th, comparison-driven spending. The middle class buys to keep up with people it wouldn't trade lives with if the curtain were pulled back. Neighbors' leases, influencers' sponsorships, friends' vacations on unsecured credit. Their highlight reel becomes your shopping list. Rich households buy time. They let their calendar be the flex. They design small, repeatable joys. They spend on purpose and let the brokerage do the boasting.
They know the most expensive sentence in the language is "it's only," repeated 40 times a month.
12th, improvisation. Many households have values and vibes, but no written rules. If you don't write rules, your moods will. Rich households write tiny policies, one page for investing, a windfall rule, buffer if needed, invest a slice, kill ugly debt, buy one defined joy, a setback rule, trim the weekly card, preserve minimums and insurance, keep investing alive at a token level if possible, call lenders early, and a partner logistics script, 10 minutes weekly. What happened last week? What matters this week? Any irregulars coming? A life with rules is not a prison, it's a path. 13th, the DIY poverty loop. The middle class saves money by doing everything alone, including tasks that steal time from the work that raises income. The rich outsource selectively and on a clock. Tax prep if complexity is high, lawn care if the hours would otherwise fund higher rate work, a bookkeeper for a small business to prevent expensive mistakes. They trade dollars for compounding hours when the math works. They don't outsource ego, they outsource bottlenecks. 14th, messy small business money. The middle class runs a side hustle out of a personal checking account, quotes from the hip, and invoices late. Rich operators, even at tiny scale, separate accounts, quote the same day with scope and expiration, do morning truck checks if they run routes, audit quality weekly, invoice the day of service, and ask for reviews with a link that takes 5 seconds to tap. They insure like adults. They pay themselves on a schedule, so the business learns to feed the household. Calm operations turn into calm profit, and calm profit turns into assets. 15th, perfectionism and purity. The middle class says, "I'll start when I can do it right," which is code for never. The rich say, "Never miss twice." They let small transfers start early and grow by $5 or $10 monthly. They let boring contributions run while life is messy. They repair quickly instead of judging deeply. Compounding runs on rhythm, not righteousness. 16th, underestimating the first 20,000. The first lump of cash, call it 20,000 more or less depending on your region, changes the physics of a household. Suddenly, annual premiums get paid at a discount, moves don't require borrowing, car repairs are errands instead of emergencies, and you can say no to a bad job offer without your month collapsing. The middle class treats the first chunk like a fantasy. The rich treat it like a project with lanes, calendar dates, and a clear number on a wall. 17th, macro excuses. Rates are high, prices are crazy, elections are scary. All true sometimes. None of them write your auto pay. Rich households design plans that work under many weather patterns. Bills early in the month, investments on payday, buffers in higher yield cash or short-dated government paper, broad equity ownership for long horizons, ballast you can stomach, and attention habits that keep your brain from buying drama at retail. 18th, education as identity, not as ROI. The middle class mistakes expensive schooling for a guaranteed income escalator. Debt is taken on for degrees without pricing the actual job market. The rich still value education, but they price it. They choose programs with clear income lifts, pursue employer-funded options, finish certificates that move salary bands, and avoid borrowing 7 years for skills that pay like 2. Pride doesn't repay principal. 19th, immobility. The middle class fixes location first and opportunity second. The rich reverse the order when needed. Proximity to the right room can outrun 1,000 careful budgets. A cheaper city with a dead ladder doesn't pay. A pricier city with a steep ladder can. The point isn't to move for sport, it's to price your ladder honestly. 20th, not measuring slope. The middle class stares at snapshots, net worth today, and feels discouraged or proud. The rich track slope, 3, 6, 12-month changes, and feel informed. If the slope is up and your weeks are calmer, you're winning. If the slope is flat but life feels calmer, you might be building muscles, skills, reputation, health that will shove the slope up later. If the slope is up and your life hurts, change the mix. More buffer, less mortgage, simpler portfolio, fewer screens, more walks. These are the brutal reasons, but a diagnosis without a prescription is just a rant. So let's make this breathe in real rooms. 3 human-scale portraits of escape. Picture a 31-year-old nurse who feels permanently almost caught up. She and her partner install rails in an afternoon. Income to staging, flows to bills with tiny buckets for tires, gifts, school fees, sleep fund, investing lane, and a weekly card that resets Friday. They write a 1-page policy in plain language and tape it inside a cabinet. She protects 2 90-minute blocks weekly to finish a certification that adds $5 an hour. On Saturdays, she starts a narrow window cleaning route across 2 neighborhoods, uses a simple price book, answers the phone, quotes the same day, and asks for reviews with a QR code that takes 5 seconds to tap. In May, she asks for a differential with receipts about reduced turnover on a tough shift she stabilized. By winter, the buffer is real, RSUs are sold as they vest to avoid concentration, the portfolio buys while she sleeps, and the family can say no to overtime that was quietly wrecking them. The title of her year isn't grind, it's system. Now a 39-year-old engineer with 2 kids and a highlight reel neighborhood. He sells a status car and buys reliability. He moves shopping apps off the home screen and plugs the phone outside the bedroom. He writes the policy, adds a small ballast sleeve because red screens make his hands itch, and rebalances on his birthday and half-birthday. He keeps a receipts file and asks for a title update with evidence of dollars saved and days shaved. He starts a tiny micro SaaS on Tuesdays that solves one ugly export problem and supports it from a checklist. Groceries stop feeling like a negotiation with fate. The house stops being a museum because the brokerage started growing. He didn't become a different person, his calendar did. A 52-year-old caregiver feels late. They downshift housing to free cash flow, tighten insurance, and build a 4-month buffer. They open a simple retirement account, buy broad funds on payday, and draft wills and beneficiary updates for parents and themselves. They keep a where things live note for the family. They run a modest bookkeeping engine for 3 trades businesses, clear scope, predictable invoicing. Life remains heavy and also calmer. Emergencies become errands. Purchases happen with cash. Nothing breaks when the phone rings with bad news. You might be thinking, this is a lot. It isn't if you do it in the right order. Start with Rails. Rename one account staging/Rails and route your next paycheck there. Set 4 automatic transfers, bills, sleep, investing, weekly card. Move recurring bills to the first week. Draft a 1-page policy in your words: what you own, how much you add, when you rebalance, bear market behavior, windfall rules. Put 2 deep work blocks on your calendar next week and choose the outcomes they'll produce. Create a receipts note and add 1 outcome this week. Charge your phone outside the bedroom, install 2 10-minute dinners, send 1 respectful ask with evidence before you sleep. That's the entire ceremony. The month won't be perfect. It will be rhythmic. Rhythm is what makes ordinary earners look lucky in 3 years. A few myths die hard. You need money to make money. True and false. You need margin to buy assets, yes, but the margin you need is smaller than the status spending you're already doing. Trade in the status identity for funded assets and the engine starts. It's different where I live. Yes, numbers change, physics doesn't. Rails, buffers, broad ownership, ballast you can stomach, and attention habits that keep your brain from buying drama at retail. I'm too late.
You're right on time to stop resetting every year. Compounding forgives those who stay in the game. When I get a raise, then I'll start. Raises without rails become subscriptions. Rails turn raises into net worth. One more uncomfortable truth. The rich are not braver. They're allergic to ruin. They buy insurance, they keep cash, they match loan terms to asset life, they design months that can survive a Tuesday. They do boring things on purpose so they can be interesting on weekends. The middle class waits for bravery. The rich build systems that don't require it. If you want to feel the difference in 7 days, try this small experiment. On Sunday night, pick 2 outcomes that would make Friday feel like a win. Put 2 90-minute blocks on your calendar for those outcomes. No meetings, phone in another room. On payday, watch your money leave on schedule. Bills, sleep, investing, weekly card. On Tuesday, send 1 ask with receipts. On Wednesday, cook a 10-minute dinner and walk for 20 minutes.